On the morning of August the 18th, the Luftwaffe launches its largest attack yet on British fighter bases. RAF commanders throw every available fighter into the air.
We weren't practicing any longer. We knew it all. We were just waiting for them.
At 20 years old, Hurricane pilot Ken Lee is a veteran. Known as Hawkeye by his colleagues, he has already shot down 7 enemy planes.
You could climb up to 5,000 or 8,000 feet and be in an engagement and be back on the ground in 25 minutes. Refueled and rearmed and off again within the hour.
I was keen to get up and get at them, as it were, and increase my score if I could.
Tally-ho, is that when you actually see them and you don't need the ground control to tell you any further. Now you've got them in the eyeball.
I was a great believer in going straight in bald-headed to take the shortest route possible to him. This didn't give him time to think what he was going to do.
While Spitfires take on the fighters that escort German bomber squadrons, Hurricanes attempt to strike at the bombers themselves. Their best chance is to get enough height to dive out of the sun.
We climbed up and up and up and up, 17,000 feet. We were struggling for height all the time, forcing and pushing it on your throttle to try and get the aircraft to catch up and get within range.
You fly the plane through the gun sight. You don't consider what you're doing with it. You just throw it around. What happens to the plane is incidental.
You've only got about 30 seconds of firing. You can put a little burst there to begin with to liven them up or distract the rear gunners.
You've got 8 guns firing something like 1,200 rounds a minute. And there's a lot of bullets in 2 seconds.
And as we were climbing up through a little break in the cloud, saw about 40 or 50, the Heinkels.
There's a whole load of Ju-88s. I remember getting in the middle of them, and I managed to damage one. I was shooting him from the side, and his tail blew off.
The first thing I knew was a bang, and my leg shot up in the air. The bullet hit me in the back of the leg. And immediately there was smoke and flames coming out from underneath the main tank. My boot was sogging like your Wellington you've got wet in the stream with the blood from the swoon.
People started coming out and pulling their parachutes. The last one out pulled his parachute too soon. It caught fire, and I saw his parachute burning away as they went down.
Now it's without control and with smoke and flames. So this time I rolled it on its back and pushed the stick forward and did my belting. I didn't unplug my oxygen, so that nearly pulled me back in again. Well, it fell out. We weren't trained in the use of parachutes. I'd only heard the night before about the theory that you 6 seconds for 1,000 feet. So I did my minute on my stopwatch. There'd been rumours that the Germans were shooting down people in parachutes. And I didn't send to be hung up there waiting to be shot. So I dropped down to about 5,000 feet. I was going round and round and round, head over heels and tumbling around. When I pulled the chute, it came up between my legs and I could well have got wrapped up in it like a parcel. And then, of course, I came wafting down in a cornfield and an old chap jumps out from the corn with a military cap on and a gun, which apparently he'd captured in Gallipoli himself from the Turks. I wasn't in uniform. I was just in shirt sleeves, no means of sort of identifying myself. So he held me at gunpoint until the London Irish arrived and took me off to the local golf club for a refresher.
By the end of the day, RAF bases have suffered extensive damage, but none have been closed. The RAF have shot down 69 German planes at the cost of 51 of their own fighters. August the 18th becomes known as the hardest day.
It was the most exciting battle I think you could wish to hear, because that's all we could do, was hear it. But they were falling out of the sky all over the place. It was really exciting. It was a bittersweet kind of day because we lost quite a few pilots. Some came back and some didn't.
Several of the pilots Edith Heap helped guide into battle that day don't make it back. Among them is fighter ace Dickie Lee.
He set off after two ME-109s, I think they were, across the channel, and he hadn't enough petrol. And we knew he hadn't enough petrol. And he just disappeared, obviously, into the sea. And I think he just didn't care. And he was determined to fly into them if necessary, collide and knock them down, because that was done more than once, not always by accident. They were going to get them, whatever, even if it means your life.
Three days after leaving home, the children on board the City of Benares receive warning of a storm ahead.
The weather deteriorated very fast. The captain said, "There is a gale, stay below." And in fact, the gale blew up into a gale force 8. Nobody who has not been on board a ship in the North Atlantic in gales probably hasn't much idea of how ferocious it can be. So we were quite happy to stay below. Just when everyone was fast asleep, there came the most terrible explosion. The whole boat shuddered. The lights went out. Someone, I don't know who, came along, took me by the hand and said, "Come on with me," and led me up onto the boat deck, where the scene that met our eyes was one of total chaos. To start with, the boat deck was now at this position because the ship was sinking. The davits that hung down from the lifeboat harness, they were being let down at the same angle as the ship was sinking. So they were swinging wildly. And the boats themselves were rocking. So getting into the boats was a miracle. I was picked up bodily and flung into the lifeboat. Most of the children did not get into lifeboats. Some children jumped and were picked up by men on rafts. But sometimes it was impossible to retrieve the children. I had been told by my father, as you know, that I had to look after my brother. I assumed, because I'd seen so many children fail to get into lifeboats, that he had failed. By this time, the ship was sinking fast, and a lot of the boats were wrecked by this downswell that was caused by the sinking ship. We were slap bang in the middle of the Atlantic, in a lifeboat, grossly overcrowded. It was rocking violently from side to side, and we were pulling away when a lifeboat, as we knew it would, turned upside down. It was like going down a vast, green, shiny, watery tunnel. And then I did, in fact, feel myself come up. And as I came up, incredibly, I had come up close to the upturned lifeboat. And I stretched out, and my hands clutched onto the key. And across from me, on the other side of the hull, was another young girl about my age. Her name was Beth. The waves seemed like mountains. I suddenly saw that wonderful rocking horse that came from the children's nursery, rocking up and down on those waves.
Throughout late August, Luftwaffe bomber squadrons keep coming. RAF pilots, despite their inferior numbers, remain defiant.
We knew we were holding, let's put it that way. We knew we were taking the bombing and that we were coping with it. There's no sense of defeat at all.
An intense routine of daily sorties against the enemy has taught British pilots that the faster, more nimble Spitfire can outmaneuver German fighters.
The Spitfire became part of you. It was the most beautiful creature. I know, I fell a bit in love with it. I used the throttle open very gently, and all of a sudden this tremendous power suddenly seemed to go through the airplane. And it was the most wonderful feeling. You were part of the air. You were a bird in the air. You didn't have to think about turning. You did turn. It just automatically went. You weren't sitting in an airplane. You were part of the airplane. It was a dream.
In the heat of battle, some young pilots like Bob Doe surprise even themselves.
It's just a question of ego, I suppose. You reckoned you were doing all right, thank you very much. And your ground crew started taking a pride in you, too. It wasn't until you got about 5 or 6 shot down that you suddenly found the ground crews are painting little swastikas on the side of your aeroplane. And this was rather nice. First time in my life when I began to realise that people were looking at me and grateful for something that I'd done. I was a very big fan of Biggles when I was a child. John's stories of Biggles. I used to read a lot of those. And I remember that when you got 5 kills, you became an ace. I thought, good God, I'm an ace. I never said anything about it. But I felt very chuffed, and I had a private celebration. I had a pint of beer before I went to bed.